All right, let's dive in. We're going to travel back to a really wild time in the Roman Empire. A time when the biggest, loudest arguments weren't about politics or sports, but about theology. Yeah, you heard that right. A time when a single letter, one tiny syllable, could literally tear a city apart. This is the amazing story of Basil the Great and his fight to define the divine. Just listen to this quote from Basil's best friend Gregory. I mean, it paints an absolutely incredible picture, right? This wasn't some quiet debate happening in a monastery. Nope. This was the talk of the town, on every single street corner in 4th century Constantinople. You had barbers, bakers, merchants, everybody had an opinion on the very nature of God. The whole city was just obsessed.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? Why? Why was an entire society completely consumed by what to us might seem like a super abstract theological puzzle? Well, the answer gets into a deep crisis of identity, of faith, and even of language. A crisis that was threatening to split the entire Christian world in two.
To really get this, you have to understand their world. This wasn't just some academic squabble. For the people of the late Roman Empire, your faith was your identity. And getting the details of that faith exactly right, well, that was a matter of eternal salvation.
Right at the heart of this citywide obsession was a massive crisis of faith. It was a conflict that had been boiling for decades, and it all came down to one single fundamental question about Jesus Christ.
And this was it, the Arian controversy. At its core, the whole debate was this. Was the Son a created being, secondary to the Father, like the priest Arius argued, or was he eternally one with the Father, fully God from the very beginning? I mean, you can see how this question strikes at the absolute heart of the Christian faith.
And get this, the entire massive debate came down to a single Greek letter, one tiny iota. On one side, you had the Homoousians. They were following the creed from the Big Council of Nicaea. They argued the Son was of the same substance as the Father. But on the other side was this huge moderate group, the Homoousians, who said, no, he's of a similar substance. Same versus similar. A whole universe of meaning was hanging on that one little letter.
And just when you think things couldn't get more complicated, a new front opened up in this war of words. A group known as the Pneumatomachi, which literally means spirit fighters, started to ask, okay, but what about the Holy Spirit? Surely it isn't God, it's got to be a creature, right? Maybe a powerful angel, but not divine. The crisis was just getting deeper and deeper. And into this absolute firestorm of debate steps a true giant of the faith, Basil of Caesarea. And this guy, he was uniquely equipped, intellectually, spiritually, and temperamentally, to take on this massive challenge.
So who was this guy? Basil came from this incredible family in what's now modern-day Turkey. His grandmother, his parents, even a few of his siblings were all venerated as saints. He got the best education money could buy, studying in Athens, which is where he met his lifelong best friend Gregory. Then in 370, he becomes the bishop of his hometown, Caesarea, and that puts him right smack in the center of this theological storm.
And you have to understand, he wasn't just some stuffy scholar. Basil was a total force of nature. He was a deep thinker who also basically invented the rule book for monastic life, a powerful preacher who could hold an entire city spellbound, and a tireless administrator who fiercely defended his people from both heresy and poverty.
And if you want one thing that reveals his character, look no further than the Basiliad. I mean, this wasn't just a soup kitchen. At his own expense, Basil built an entire complex outside the city, a whole new town, really, complete with hospitals and housing for the poor. It's just the perfect example of his core belief. Correct belief and compassionate action were two sides of the very same coin.
So how did this brilliant, multi-talented man tackle this crisis over the Holy Spirit? He did what he did best. He wrote. And his treatise, On the Holy Spirit, was an absolute masterpiece of theology, logic, and pastoral care.
His strategy was just beautifully logical. First, he systematically took apart his opponent's arguments, one by one. Then, he built this powerful, positive case for the Spirit's divinity. And finally, everything he wrote was aimed at helping ordinary people understand their faith more deeply. He was a debater, a teacher, and a shepherd all at the same time.
Basil himself put it best. He believed that no detail was too small when you're talking about God. He argued that analyzing tiny syllables and prepositions wasn't just pointless hair-splitting. It was like a tiny mustard seed, he said. These small words could grow into a much, much deeper understanding of the truth.
Now, his opponents kept demanding, show us in the Bible. Show us where it explicitly says the Holy Spirit is God. And here is where Basil's genius really shines. He looked beyond just the written page. He started arguing from the church's unwritten tradition, the way Christians had always prayed, the way they had always baptized, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He basically showed that faith was something you lived, not just something you read.
So, what was the lasting impact of Basil's work? Well, it had a profound and immediate effect on the church.
See, Basil's careful, brilliant arguments did way more than just win a debate. They actually built a bridge. He was able to persuade so many of those moderates, the similar substance folks, that his view was the true continuation of the faith decided at Nicaea. He united the Orthodox cause, turning a fractured group into a strong, unified front.
Tragically, Basil died in 379, completely worn out from his work. But just 2 years later, in 381, his ideas won the day. The Council of Constantinople formally adopted the very theology he had championed, finally affirming the divinity of the Holy Spirit. They enshrined it in the creed that is still recited by millions of Christians all around the world today.
And so we end right back where we started. Basil's story is this powerful reminder that words matter, that the struggle to find just the right language for our deepest beliefs, well, it isn't some trivial pursuit. It's a fundamental part of our history. It leaves all of us with a question to think about. Just how decisive can a single syllable truly be in defining what we believe and what we are willing to fight for?